You are recording. I am recording. And I'm ready to go.
So, greetings and welcome to Ill Repute, the podcast about women and women first. I am Sovereign Syre. I am a writer, a stand-up comedian, and just trapped in a cat suit of emotion.
I love it, and it looks great on you. I'm Ela Darling. I am a former librarian, an extant adult film performer, a roboticist of various means, and I am pragmatically uncivil.
I like it.
Yeah, and I'm really happy to be here with you to talk about Our Lady, Phyllis Diller.
That is correct. This is
Our Lady of Comedy.
This is part 3, the final installment in our deep dive on Miss Phyllis Diller. So to catch everyone up, she was born did. She lived did. She left school and got married did. And she mom did. And she had a deadbeat husband, like went through 17 jobs in 1 year, deadbeat husband. So it's not our just usual kind of man bashing. It is legitimate. It has numbers to it. Like if you ask me now, like what are the stats? What are the actual specs and metrics of deadbeat? I would say holding more than 10 jobs in 1 year would be like a solid numerical metric.
And he came in with half again more.
Yeah.
Because he is ambitious in exactly one way, and that is being the least ambitious, productive, constructive person, parent, husband, entrepreneur. He's so good at fucking off entirely and sucking.
Yeah.
Like,
and he's kind of the most frustrating kind of loser because he would actually get breaks that most people don't and then like not use them. Which is
just squander them creatively.
Which is kind of like even more frustrating. It's like someone that sticks the landing and then like jumps 2 feet back. Like,
ew, landing. No.
So yeah, she has this day. She's rising to fame. She does a play. She meets this guy, Ward. He's kind of a hot shit theater actor. They start having an affair. They're both married. He has a wife that's ill. She has a husband that's clearly very mentally ill. And then Ward's wife passes away, and he's kind of like, like, let's do this, right? I want to, make you an honest woman.
Yeah.
And she finally leaves her husband, and she gets with Ward, and she's on top of the world. She's buying like $1 million homes. She's got this dream boy beefcake of a hot dude. Her kids all have their own room. Like she's riding high. She's got TV shows. She's done movies. She's a celebrity now. She's a household name.
She's reaping the fruits of the labor that she's sown.
Yes.
And good for her. We love to see it.
Yeah. And then there start to be some cracks in the marriage because she had always suspected that Ward was perhaps bisexual. But then she started to get the feeling that he was just straight up gay, which didn't necessarily bother her. It was more just like the infidelity of it all and kind of the lack of honesty around it.
It's not good to feel like you're left in the dark in your own relationship. Like if whatever it is, we can weather it as long as you communicate about it. And as soon as someone starts holding things back, I have no doubt in my mind that she would have been a supportive and invested partner if she were given the opportunity to.
Yeah. Or, she would have had the option to divorce and say like, I don't, I want to be with someone that I'm all they need.
Yeah. But she would have made she would have made a choice if she was given the opportunity to. And I think one of the cruelest things you can do to somebody that you profess to love is to deny them the agency and autonomy to choose for themselves when it comes to something that you have information that you're simply not sharing with them on.
Yeah.
No matter what it is, that can destroy someone.
Yeah.
So that fucking sucks.
So that brings us to part 3. So during their courtship, Phyllis and Ward would just meet up around the world and she didn't really think about what he was getting up to when she wasn't around. But once she had a suspicion he was fucking a male pianist that she knew, and when she confronted him about it, he smashed a chair in front of her, which is always a great sign in a relationship.
I have had more than one dude smash a chair. It's like they think they're a rock star in a hotel room, but not just me. Like I've had friends, like this is a consistent note in stories. Like, yeah, he like grabbed a chair and he smashed it. I don't know why men hate chairs.
I had one.
Maybe because they support me more than they do.
I had one that took my laptop and threw it and broke it, and it had like a novel on it.
Wow.
Yeah, that was fun. And then I didn't date men for 10 years.
Who could blame you? And what a gift, what a vacation of life that may have been for you.
Yeah.
Well, there was an ex-CBS executive named Brother John who she suspected Ward was having an affair with, but she overlooked it because she loved Ward so much. It wasn't about the homosexuality. It was, like you said, it was about the cheating, the infidelity, the dishonesty.
Yeah. Because she's writing this, at the age of like 70 or 80. So it's like wisdom of the staircase, hindsight is 2020. Right. But Absolutely. It's like looking back on it, she realizes that when they got married in 1965, Ward didn't want any photos taken of the wedding. And I think as looking back on the relationship, she realized that it was because he didn't want his gay friends to know that he had gotten married. And like immediately after the marriage, Brother John became like a fixture in the house and kind of became a third wheel, right? Mm-hmm. So the first big thing was, so her kids were living in St. Louis with like family, and then she had bought a house there and they were all in there, and then she got a place in LA, and Ward had Brother John drive the kids, right? Or take them from St. Louis to Los Angeles when that move was happening, which was, kind of like a big duty to, like, here, take the children. Like,
so were the kids already settled in with family and he just arranged it so that she would have something to consume her time and attention?
No, I think it was that she had finally got a place, like this is going to be the final like house, right? And like,
so this was the goal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And this third person was
the person that Ward entrusted with the task of like transporting the children, because, obviously like Phyllis is touring all the time. She's she's got to do all of this stuff. So she can't like stop and like arrange for 5 children to move their whole lives to another city.
Of course, he couldn't do it by himself. He had to make sure that it was a group effort with his side piece.
Yes. Exactly.
Because it's important for him to have good tasks and feel important and valued in his affair partner's marriage.
Yeah. So she describes it as him being like a third wheel in the marriage, and and I just think I relate to this so much. Like I really do. The final straw for her was that Brother John, like they were refurbishing the house, right? She just bought the house. They're like, that Brother John like started trying to make decisions about like the oven in the kitchen.
Oh, excuse me.
And she was like, no. Like this is a bridge too far. I get it. 'Cause I had an ex that still managed to cheat on me, even though we were in an open relationship. And getting cheated on when you're in an open relationship is kind of like getting fired while you're holding a mop. It's like,
oh, that hurts me deep.
Like, I don't know if you've ever been fired while like holding a mop. Like someone's come up to you, like, I see us moving in different directions. Like, I'm mopping up shit off the.
Yeah, I'm cleaning up your shit.
I'm mopping up shit off the bathroom floor. Like, what are the different directions we're going here? Like,
it's like your kids saying they want to be emancipated while you're changing their diaper for them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Relatable. It finally ended when she came home from being on the road and her daughter told her that Ward and Brother John had locked themselves in the bedroom for an hour to have sex. Phyllis couldn't take being cheated on in her own home that she bought.
Yeah.
By the way.
Yeah.
So she filed for divorce, rightly so. Good for her. Congratulations.
Yeah.
No marriage ends because things are good.
Yeah. But I mean, I will say this, not in defense of Ward, but in defense of the way the world works.
Yeah.
How you get them is how you lose them.
That's absolutely true.
So you were having an affair with the guy that was married. No matter how bad or weird or unfulfilling the relationships were, like how you get them is how you lose them. So it's like,
yeah. Look, we support women's rights and we support women's wrongs. But I gotta say, like, having an affair with somebody or having an affair while you are the husband to a sick woman is pretty low. And being the willful affair. And I say this as a whore, so like this is so convoluted and so complex. But one of the first questions I ask someone when I'm like authentically dating them, when I'm getting to know someone, like with my boyfriend, one of the first questions I asked him was, hey, is there anybody who would feel hurt or upset if they saw us hanging out like this? Because do you have a girlfriend isn't the right question.
No.
That doesn't get to the root of I don't want to participate in somebody being cheated on or being disloyal. Like, I don't want to engage in that.
Yeah.
And I know that this is something that I've spoken to you about.
Yeah.
And so, like, I'm not trying to throw shade at Phyllis, but girl, like.
Well, as a hoe, I'm going, well, you're grown.
Mm-hmm.
You know the rules of the game.
Yeah.
So this outcome was entirely predictable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like,
you're absolutely right.
So in that way, it's like, I support women's rights. I support women's wrongs, but like also, play the game. You got to play by the rules. Like,
and these are reasonable consequences to actions. Yeah. This is the reasonable finding out after you've f***ed around. It's if it were disproportionate, if it were crazy, if she were like jailed or something, that'd be a different story.
I think Phyllis's problem is a problem that I think a lot of women have, which is like the sunken cost fallacy kind of situation. Yes. It's just a lot harder for us to abandon people, like because a lot of us have been through that kind of abandonment as like through the course of womanhood, like have experienced that kind of not being supported and not having anyone to rely on and all that kind of stuff. And like, we have a tendency to project that onto male partners that don't have the same life experiences and the same emotional maturity and like ability to empathize. So I think that that's a thing. If you've got issues like that in your life, try to not do that anymore.
Yeah. Have you tried not?
Yeah. Try not doing that. Like, honestly, anyway.
Yeah.
So, at the time, you had to be separated for a year before a divorce could be finalized. So they split up, and for a year, she didn't talk to him, nothing. And then the day before the divorce was final, Ward reached out to her asking if he could come over, and she couldn't help herself. He came over. She was too attracted to him. I think we've all been there. Digmatization is a problem.
She's digmatized.
Yeah, like you got to stay vigilant. You got to stay vigilant about it because
that dick finds you at your lowest and fills you right up.
It really does.
And before you know it, it's like logic is slow, dick is fast. Rationality gets caught at every red light along the way. The red flags are lagging behind. So all you see is green lights and I am about to come and I have not come. And this is,
and I think just like it's the fantasy, like it's easier for things to just like work out.
It's like the ideal situation being thrown at you and you just, So with that, did that mean that they stayed together or did that stand in the way of the divorce moving forward? How did that?
They were back together, like, fixed it.
Oh, fantastic. It's like getting pregnant to fix a relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he didn't promise to change or any of all that, but Brother John was at least out of the picture. Still, she was on tour in Australia with Ward being her opening act. When they arrived, the limo driver was an attractive man. She was dropped at the hotel and Ward and the limo driver went to the beach where Ward blew him. Oh, romantic.
Mm.
He came back to the hotel with cum on his breath. Oh man, that reminds me of a Type of Negative song. But yeah, she lost it. She was stuck. She's in love with a guy who is gay and also a raging alcoholic, and also he has brain damage from childhood trauma.
Yeah, like
It's a multi-layered. It was doomed. She was doomed. It was doomed from probably the start, but certainly never. Yeah.
yeah, like those charismatic losers. And here's the thing: is like you can love someone, and they're just not capable of showing up the way that they want to, or the way that you need them to. And like, and I think that also like can be like really hard to deal with. I think it takes a lot of discipline to say no to a situation in which there just really isn't hope unless you're willing to sacrifice your own happiness. So what really ratcheted up the tension was the children. So her oldest, Peter, had moved out, but unhappy in her new marriage, her two remaining daughters, Stephanie and Susie, moved out to an apartment in San Francisco, and her youngest son, Perry, got into yelling matches with Ward, which resulted in Perry leaving. So she had worked all of her life to have all of her children under one roof and like a nice home, and as soon as she got it, they were all gone. You know?
Man.
Yeah.
That's how it fucking goes. That sucks. In 1970, she got cast as Dolly in Hello, Dolly on Broadway. The writer had been changing up the cast. Previously, he had cast black actors, Pearl Bailey and Cab Calloway. Now, he wanted to cast Phyllis. Her performance was panned. She lasted 3 months before she was replaced by Ethel Merman, who the part had actually been written for, and who also is just...
In a strange turn of luck, she began performing as a concert pianist for the next 10 years. Touring the country.
Just what she fell back on. I'm just so glad she had something in her back pocket. This tragic, she had a hobby, I guess.
Yeah.
Jesus, that's incredible.
This is from her book, quote, "It was in May 1971 that I made my debut as a piano soloist, adopting the virtuoso pseudonym Dame Ela Darling. In my mid-50s, I, at last, had a public outlet for all the private practice, a means fulfilling some of the failed dreams of my music school years. And like so many other things relating to my career, it came about by happy accident. For the longest time, I had played the Holiday House just outside Pittsburgh, a big nightclub with a large orchestra serving really good food."
So she continues, "Like clockwork, I was there every autumn when the women's bowling teams had their annual competition. Well, one morning in my bedroom at home, I received a call from someone representing the Pittsburgh Pops asking whether I'd do a show for them. Thinking music and symphony, I said, oh, I'll play a little Bach and a little Beethoven. I'd love that."
There was a silence.
Bless your heart.
Yeah. She goes on, "There was a silence on the other end of the phone while the guy regained consciousness. He didn't let on that he only wanted my comedy act. It became my first symphony performance. If this negotiation had been handled by anyone else, an agent or a manager, I would have never enjoyed 10 wonderful years of concert work," unquote.
So he hit her up to do a comedy spot, and she was like, oh yeah, I'll just casually play as a concert pianist. And this dude just didn't correct her.
Yeah.
And just like,
Yeah.
he could have easily, pulled some douchey bullshit, been condescending, he had any number of opportunities to steer this conversation south.
Yeah.
And instead it ended up being incredibly empowering for her.
It's also just a lesson in life about like always betting on yourself. And so instead of her insecurity being the thing and going like, oh yeah, I'll do comedy, it's like when she talks about that book, the Magic of Believing, like I think this is an example of showing how changing the way you think works, which is she didn't immediately go, oh, they must just want me for comedy, da da da. She had the confidence to be like, oh, the Pops is calling me. They must want me as a pianist. They must. Like it didn't like that is the magic of believing. Like, and that's what she's talking about when she says it's like it's a system. You have to spend like a year like literally retraining your mind to get rid of these knee-jerk reactions that are pulling you back instead of pushing you forward. So here is some video of Phyllis Diller playing piano next to Liberace.
That's it.
How come it's so small?
Well, I washed it and it shrank.
What'd you wash it for?
Well, half the keys were black.
Phyllis, do me a favor for me.
Huh?
Play that number you wrote. She wrote this herself. It's beautiful. It's called Phyllis's Fugue.
Oh, how nice. Okay.
Holy so first of all, just the audio, just simply the composition itself is incredible. It is uplifting. I did get chills when she first started playing it.
Because you're like, holy she stopped around. Like,
yeah, but then the fact that she's playing it with her big fake eyelashes and her floofy, like, pink, I definitely didn't just murder my husband officer outfit. And she's vamping. She's making faces. She's like, her hands are doing more work than most people. Like, her hands have the talent that most people like would sell their soul for. And she's doing that while also just like, oh my God,
yeah, like she's such a flirt. Some people are just like inherently sexual and it has nothing to do with the way they look. And she's like one of those people that has this like sexuality that is like a gravitational pull to it. Like,
she really does.
Yeah.
But the fact that she is simultaneously performing a virtuoso piano performance and being so endearing and like flirty and honestly hot.
Yeah.
She's like, a lot of people can't pull that off while they're not playing the piano.
Yeah.
You know? She's just juggling everything at the same time. She's truly a star.
Yes.
Throughout the next 10 years, her marriage with Ward was marred by his alcoholism and her success. She parted ways with him again and then took him back again before finally leaving him for good.
You heard that right. 10 more years. You heard that correctly.
10 entire
10
more
entire
fucking
more
years
years.
of not being loved, appreciated, sexually
Validated. Yeah.
Fuck.
So
What was she getting? What did she get from this?
I think what we all do, which is in some ways it keeps us from confronting what we really fear, which is actual love.
Yeah.
We're afraid of the vulnerability that would come from being in a genuinely loving relationship. And so we pursue relationships that are either like doomed to fail or unrequited, or because when you have that balance, like you're never going to be fully vulnerable, like in a way that's truly scary, you know? And so I think that's what it is. But here's her quote about it. She said, quote, "It was in essence like A Star is Born. In the beginning, having done Broadway and London and appeared in his own show, he thought he was a star. He even had his own fan club, but I was on the rise and I was hot. So before long, all of the calls were for me. I made people hire him, but finally they wouldn't. He had nothing to do and it got worse. I couldn't even get him to open for me."
After all, Ward Donovan wasn't a name like others who had opened for me, she continued. Like singers Enzo Stuarti and Jerry Valley.
I think so.
So he was reduced to doing my announcements. And even then, there were many, many times when he didn't show up. I couldn't depend on him. I'd have to make the announcements myself and then walk on stage with a broken heart.
She goes on. The year was 1975. I filed for divorce that February. Following our split, I would occasionally run into Ward around the neighborhood and he'd always want me to join him for a drink, even after he'd remarried. He would have done anything to get back with me, regardless of the situation, but I was no longer interested and I could not be tempted.
Good for her. And here we've got a TikTok clip.
And it's a way of living with
No,
things.
my dear, I joke about it because I'm expected to joke about it.
Yeah.
You see, it's better than telling the truth.
You've been divorced, and I guess that's a painful experience.
Very.
for most people.
Very painful.
How do you deal with that?
You cry.
Yeah.
No, this time I didn't cry. I was separated so many times because of huge upsets from my latest husband. But the fact that we kept going back together shows how difficult it was to ever part. And I'm much happier alone. You know, as a matter of fact, this is 35 years of marriage that I've just completed. And it's a wonderful thing to be a free agent for the first time in my life. So I'm enjoying my freedom.
I love that. I mean, she's right. Like, what do you do when you're getting divorced? You cry. It's horrible, no matter how right it is. Like, no marriage ends because things are great, but no divorce happens without leaving you feel like run through the fucking ringer emotionally. Like, it can be the best choice for everybody, and it's still devastating. And I really appreciate her patience with the young woman who's interviewing her, because it comes off as this very naive individual who's just reading the lines that she's, prompted to ask this incredibly famous, articulate, intelligent woman. And Phyllis could have been a lot.
What's really interesting is her, like, in interviews, she's very genuine. She's not trying to, like, make quips, which is really, it's really cool. When, like, I've met a lot of comedians because, I've spent the last 8 years bouncing around comedy clubs and, like, doing shows and this and that.
Yeah.
And like,
because you are one.
Yeah. Comedians off stage actually tend to be, like, terribly serious people. Mm-hmm. It's really hard for me to joke around with some of my friends that are comics because they're not on and they don't think you're on. Yeah. So it's like, they'll be like, and I'm like, oh no, like I'm making a joke. And then it's like, okay. Like, and so it's kind of
they
like
take earnestness seriously.
Quit doing comedy at me, Sovereign. Sorry. I'm sorry. Like,
I'm just like this. Yeah. In 1971, after an appearance on the Sonny and Cher show, she watched herself on camera and she saw what she was focused on, in her words, her jowls and fat pads and turkey neck, which is never a way that I would editorialize anything about the way that a woman looks. So let me just, I'm a princess about this. But she saw what she didn't like and she freaked out. So she called a dermatologist and they recommended her to a plastic surgeon.
And he was like, bitch, I'm not a magician. You're going to need a needle and thread.
A wish and a prayer can only get you so far. But the actual professionals are going to get you where you need to be.
Retin-A can only do so much.
At some point, you have to buy a plane ticket. Yeah. Like, you're not going to walk. So she got a facelift. They did an upper and lower bleph.
Which is your eyelids.
Your eyelids. So upper eyelids and under your eye. A facelift, a neck lift. And without her realizing it, the doctor also straightened her broken nose and bobbed it to make it straight and shorter. So the doctor was just like, look, while I'm here, let me just take out the trash. Let me, like, sweep. Let me throw the laundry into the dryer for you. Let me just look out for you.
Yeah. And I think also, though, plastic surgeons are artists, mm-hmm. and he was probably like, has this super famous client with this iconic kind of image. And it's like, he wants the work to look impeccable. And so he made an artistic choice to straighten her nose and bob it so that the symmetry of his work would be best highlighted. And, we love a passionate king when it comes to...
We love a go-getter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, he's going out of pocket just to make sure that the final piece is everything everybody had hoped for. Also, let's not, like, this is the kind of thing that would be very easy to get up in arms about. Like, I can't believe he did this to her when she could. This is an ongoing, the relationship you have with your surgeon, with your plastic surgeon.
Yeah.
Cosmetic, like, something that you're choosing, not like you're in the ER and they have to, like, that relationship is one of mutual understanding, of self-disclosure. You share sort of what your end goals and results are because they want to do a good job for you.
Yeah.
So that you can walk away feeling good. They don't want you to be a constant repeat client because we all know what overdone, overfixed plastic surgery looks like. That's not what an artist wants people to see.
Yeah.
So I love this for her.
Yeah.
How did she feel about it?
She loved it. As she put it, she'd been given a pretty face. Here's the thing. Like, when you take away like the hair and all of the stuff, when you look at old photos of Phyllis, she was already very pretty.
She was already very pretty. Except when she endeavored not to be.
Yeah.
Like, anytime she wasn't like a stunner was a creative choice on her.
Yeah. And that's kind of the thing I miss about the book is that she really like, she mentioned like this complex of my looks, but she never really like plumbs those depths.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, and because the thing is like, she was dating around the jazz clubs. She talks about being unfaithful to her husband. Like, oh, but that was just on the road. It was just like, whatever. So it's like, she was getting tons of male attention and validation. Right. So like her insistence to herself that she was not attractive is kind of laughable because it's like, but clearly you were attracting hot people all the time. Like Bob Hope was in love with you, you know, like,
okay.
you know,
but you know what? But I get it because if you have been taught early on, the first way that you've been taught to perceive yourself is you ain't, you're ugly, you're homely, you're kind of weird looking, you're fine, I guess you'll do. Like, you don't believe people when they, like, I'm a professional attractive person at this point in my life, and I have been for quite some time. When I was in high school, I can, in retrospect, say I was kind of pretty for a while. I was definitely very nerdy and very awkward for much of my youth. But when somebody would ask me out, I would think that they were making fun of me, and I would think that this is a joke that they set up, and like all my peers are watching for, you know, like, okay, where's like, this is really mean, and like, it's really cruel of you to like, to say this to me when all this sweet young man was trying to do was ask me out. So what I'm saying is the power of like the way that you perceive yourself and reinforce that negativity, it can outscream the loudest of audiences. Like,
yeah. I mean, I
get that.
just like, I've always had like the reverse of body dysmorphia. Like I think I'm super hot, and then like I'll see a photo and be like, ooh, I don't like that. And self-esteem, confidence. That's what I have. That's what reverse body dysmorphia is. Like I always
must be fucking nice.
Like
that's a flavor I'm not used to.
I always think I'm super hot, and then I see photos, and I'm like I could probably count on my hand the number of photos that someone else has taken of me that I looked at and was like, wow, I look great. She had been given a pretty face. People around her were against it. They thought that she would ruin her career if she became beautiful. Bob Hope simply preferred her natural face and was like in love with her. She claims that she knew from the start that like there was no need to worry because she had already branded herself as ugly for so long that the audience would just like continue to go along with it. However, what she did do that was revolutionary was talk about the fact that she had had plastic surgery. No one talked about it. No one. And she did. And she went on to have 14 more procedures over the next 15 years. Like, I think she got veneers. I think she got a breast reduction. She had counted it all up, but like, she never looked overdone. Like, that sounds like a lot, but it's also because people don't realize that like a facelift is not its own procedure. It's actually like 8 different procedures in one kind of. So like that number can sound high when it could be these are all like separate things that were done like in the same surgery. So there's a TikTok with her.
My face has been pulled up more times than Bill Clinton's pants.
Love this woman.
I
love the way that she looks on the way that she presents herself on stage. She's wearing this beautiful pink sequin dress, but she walks very flat-footed and she's almost aggressively unfeminine. She's like really trying really hard to like, when you're a certain level of sexy, you have to put in a little bit of an endeavor to convince people not to sexualize you.
Yeah. In her book, she said, there isn't a female comic who does not want to be a great beauty. The 4 top comedians of the 70s all went for surgery. Joan Rivers, Carol Burnett, Toddy Fields, and me.
And we've got another TikTok from her.
All lady comics want to be beautiful.
Yes.
They all want to go to, Joan Rivers has become sort of an addict of that liposuction. She'll go to dinner and then go straight to the doctor and say, it's right here, take it out.
I love that she's saying that in front of Barbara Walters.
Yeah.
Who the fuck is the other lady?
Barbara Walters.
She also did something else no woman had done before when in 1982, she disguised herself as a man and snuck into the Friars Club. So let's talk about that.
Yes.
Because I've seen some photos.
Yeah, it's pretty baller. So
Yeah.
So the Friars Club was founded in New York City in 1904 by a group of like show business peeps, actors, musicians, comedians. It's best known for its roasts. If you know what Comedy Central is, I think it's probably that, South Park, and are kind of the Daily Show. Those are probably the three things that have kept Comedy Central afloat. So
Yeah. Side note, I actually got to go to the Friars Club roast of, I don't remember who. I just remember that I met Jerry Springer there. I don't remember who they were roasting. It wasn't important. I just got to meet Jerry, and I got to do a really cool posed photo where Jerry was like, he looked like he was breaking up a fight, and me and my partner and our friends, we were like posing like we were fighting. So it's like, oh, okay, you put your fist right here, and I'm gonna make my face do a dumb thing. So it looks like, and it is one of the coolest photographs I have. If I can find it, it'll take some looking. If I can find it, I'll provide it for the show notes. But
Awesome.
Friars Club roast is the premier roast, like celebrity roasts. If you have heard of it, it's the Friars Club who's doing it, and they are fun.
Friars Club is mainly known for the roast, and what a lot of people that have watched the roast on Comedy Central may not appreciate is that the Friars Club was aggressively male only for a very long time. So
It's called the Friars Club. I don't think there are any female friars historically.
yeah. So just to and that lets you know like how it was being in show business basically like kind of before the 80s. Like we thought it was a boys club. People thought it was a boys club until Me Too. But then when you read about stuff that was kind of like pre the 80s, like it was a boys club on fucking roid rage. It's Jerry Lewis going like, women can't be funny. Women aren't like, I mean, he just said some like, he would just.
It was Jerry Lewis. It was Jerry Lewis who.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Look up Jerry Lewis, women in comedy, because I want to get the quote right.
Okay. The Hollywood Reporter from 2017. Jerry Lewis drew ire over his comments about female comedians. Judd Apatow went on an expletive-filled rant in 2012 about statements made by this actor, such as, "A woman doing comedy doesn't offend me, but sets me back a bit. I, as a viewer, have trouble with it. I think of her as a producing machine that brings babies in the world." Ew.
Mm-hmm.
So, an incubator.
Yeah.
Gross. So, when it came to welcoming women into the comedy pantheon, Jerry Lewis drew a line that increasingly put him at odds with the growing ranks of female comics, blah, blah, blah. He's a piece of shit. Exactly the same quote we just said. Tina Fey got mad at him.
So like, Phyllis was working with people that had attitudes like this. They just didn't say the quiet part out loud. Although I'm sure to her face, she was told this plenty of times. Because I can tell you as a comic that happens to also have a vagina that more than once when telling someone that I'm a comedian, I will be put on the spot as though I represent all women and can speak for every last one of us in basically defending my ability to do my job. I don't get it from other comics, but like from men in the general pop. Yeah. Like you still get that kind of like, oh, I just like don't really get into female comics. And I'm just like, why are you telling me this? Like, is that supposed to mean something to me? Like, okay, then don't watch them. We don't want you at our shows. Great.
Yeah. There's a simple solution here. And I didn't need to be involved in the conversation.
Yeah.
Like you have all the tools available to you to handle your feelings.
It's like someone going, I don't like black comics. Then don't go to a Chris Rock show,
Easy.
And then and you take that tweet and you print it out and then you fold it up and then you shove it up your ass.
all the way up your
All
ass.
the way up your ass.
As far as they can go.
Yeah. Yes.
Coat it in lube if you have to, if only to help degrade it
Yeah.
and break it down so it absorbs into your rectal situation. And then you can absorb that hate back into you along with the ink and bleach of the paper. And then you can go shit yourself into oblivion because nobody asked. Welcome.
Don't do that to women. Don't do it to black people. Don't do it to brown people. Don't do it to any, like, don't
punch down.
Or it's not even
Don't
punching
question-
down. It's just like when you meet someone that is from a vulnerable class that you have a question about or some feelings about, and you think that you're just being like making conversation and like opening up a dialogue, like, don't do that. Like, no one likes to feel put on the spot. Like, you have to have some like perfect rejoinder for whatever their critique is of your group of people as a whole.
Historically, the Friars Club had a reputation for being male-dominated, and women were not allowed to become full members for many years. Women could visit as guests, not as members, but only after 4 p.m., and the club didn't admit its first woman as a member until Liza Minnelli in 1987, when your bitch right here was an infant little baby. In 1983, after months of planning, Phyllis Diller dressed up as a man named Philip Downey and attended the roast of Sid Caesar. And I have to say, you've included a photograph. She looks like a really handsome, she looks like someone's affable and affluent grandfather.
Yeah. And look at her. Like, she was tall. Like, she's almost as tall as her date. There's this photo of her in a very smart 3-piece suit, got a mustache, like the swoopy hair. And to like,
yeah, she looks like a little silver fox.
yeah. And to be fair, like, she wasn't going to be recognizable even if she was just like, I call what she did drag, like her onstage persona. Like, that was drag.
Yeah.
So like most people probably wouldn't have recognized her like out of costume anyway. So it kind of like, it's like 2 layers of disguise in one.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a quote of hers.
She's got a medium Pat Sajak, like elderly Pat Sajak vibe.
So that was not my idea. For 6 years, I had a New York beau, Howard Rose. And whenever I went to New York, he took me around. And when he came out here, I gave parties for him and made sure he met all of my friends. We had a romping 6-year romance. He was never in love with me, but he liked my friends and my way of life and my entertainment, and we took cruises together. He was a member of the Friars Club, although he was not in showbiz. He was just a rich guy. He got the idea that I should go to the roast dressed as a man. He just got an obsession about it.
She continues. He bought a table of 10 and I started preparing my disguise. Phony eyebrows, a mustache. I went to the boys' department and bought a suit. They must have thought I was nuts. Woman's crazy in booth too. I dressed all up like a man. Everyone at the table knew. I could never have gotten by without anybody knowing. Now, remember, I'm dressed as a man, so now I can't go to any toilet. I can't go to the men's toilet because I'm a lady. And I can't go to the women's toilet because I'm dressed like a man. Anyway, somebody took a picture of me by the men's room, and it was in the newspaper. Howard and I left the next day for Paris, but it kicked up a big storm, which was fun. I love that she's just like dropping bombs,
So we had to leave
shit,
town.
And she's like, oh, I'm so sorry, Paris awaits,
Yes.
and your drama is so domestic.
So here is her talking about it on the Rosie O'Donnell show in 1996.
I remember hearing how you broke into the Friars Club.
Oh, dear.
And you dressed as a
Yes.
man. Here's this
Yes.
photo. Look at this. You dressed as a man.
I look like Claude Rains.
You did. And they had no idea. And it was a male-only Friars Club back
That's
then.
true.
And what happened when they found out that it was you?
There was a big upset. I mean, it was the first time a woman had been there and heard that language. Well, I had heard it before I drive.
Fucking love her.
She's so great.
Shortly after this, Phyllis met the love of her life, a lawyer named Robert P. Hastings. He was a 75-year-old widow, and she was a 68-year-old twice divorcee. They lived apart together. They both kept their own places, but became traveling and entertaining companions. She was mainly working the cruise circuit at this point, and they went on tons of cruises together. And he always came to her shows and laughed. Let's focus on that last part. He came to her shows, so he showed the fuck up, and he laughed because he got her and he got her comedy. And like, he supported her the way, like, if you're doing comedy, how do you support someone doing comedy? You fucking laugh.
Yeah.
And you encourage the ones around you to laugh also.
Yeah. So he was a fully self-sufficient and confident person, which was the opposite of anything she'd ever had. He didn't need anything from her, and he wasn't threatened by her. So she was finally able to relax, and she started painting and selling those paintings. Something else I can relate to when you find a stable relationship.
Somebody who makes you feel secure in who you are and encourages you to explore your own passions and find new ones because they're so secure in their love for you that they
Or just like when you
and embolden you.
when you are with someone that doesn't have you like working 24/7, whether that's going out and physically working or emotionally working 24/7, right?
The emotional labor of constantly like having to run their life alongside yours.
Or constantly manage their feelings or whatever. And like when I got the financial security of selling a script and then I got a stable relationship, it was the first time in my life I was able to relax enough to get a fucking hobby.
And how fucking sovereign, Syre, of you to make the hobby be something that you are like excellent out the gate at, excelling first and foremost, and also like just like you're great at it. And you already have traction with it. Like the moment you started painting, you had patronage that didn't know what they were waiting for until you created it. And I count myself amongst that patronage.
Well, I think
like I've got 2 or 3 of your paintings in my home.
I just like wanted to do it because I saw my partner is a fine artist. He's a painter. That's how he makes his living. I would just watch him working and it just seemed fun. That's such a luxury that comes not from having wealth or anything, which is the luxury tax of being an independent creative, by the way. The luxury tax of that is like the amount of time and anxiety in between gigs. Like,
life exists between feast and famine. Into her 70s, Phyllis Diller was still doing 125 club shows a year. And TV appearances and cruise ships. Her new partner, Bob, would always go to her shows and her cruises until he suffered a series of mini strokes, which made it understandably quite a bit harder. Then one day they were headed to a cruise and he felt ill. He had to be taken home, but she had to do the cruise. She had to fulfill her contract. She didn't have the luxury of just fucking off from it. The day she arrived on that cruise ship, she got the word that Bob had died. And it was the last cruise ship booking she ever did. He was 86, and they'd had 10 good, glorious years together.
Which is, that's a long time for a good relationship. So
that's, that's more than many of us can ask for. And that's beautiful that they shared it. But it's also heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I could imagine hating cruises after that.
Yeah, it's going to get more heartbreaking. So then in quick succession, 2 of her children died. First, it was her oldest, Peter. So Peter had moved out of the house and married and was living in St. Louis. And as he got older, he started to display the same eccentricities as his father. He didn't like to leave the house. Him and his wife used paper bags as lampshades, like that kind of thing, like very Howard Hughesy kind of.
Yeah.
So she hadn't spoken to him since the early 70s. She had made an unexpected stop at his house and he was out in his front lawn watering. And when he saw her, she got out of the car and he like doused her with water and told her to get away. So she got back in her car and left.
He treated her like 2 dogs in his yard.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? I'm very like your perspective on this matter is very important to me.
I think despite all of her attempts despite her loving motherhood, despite her attempts at creating income, right? That what she did and this is me just guessing, and some of her children are still alive, so I want to be very respectful in how I speak.
Thank you. And of course.
So if it were me, right, if I was going to look at it from a child's point of view, she essentially left her children to fend for themselves with a really unstable father. Then got into another very unstable relationship with Ward and was always gone being a star, right?
Yeah.
And I can imagine that, especially for the older children that lived with the chaos of her first marriage for longer and had more memories of it, it probably was, worse, right? Like that kind of thing. That could be me completely projecting, but I can't imagine that it was fun to have this famous mom that's out there like having this glamorous life while you're appointed for, right? Like your financial situation is whatever, but like she's not there, and
there's no stand-in for presence.
And so I think she was very devoted. I think that it was like a rock and a hard place type situation, which it always is when like you are the ride. Like she's the ride. She can't like go somewhere else and have someone pretend to be her on stage. It's like she is the ride.
Yeah.
She is the attraction, right? So it's like
she's central figure.
Yeah, so it's like in order to make the money that's needed to survive, like she has to go out and do this, but that also means she's not home. So, it's kind of like it's a no-win situation really, So, I think that probably there clearly was a disconnection there. There was a severing of things. And I think like the way she explains it in her book is that she interpreted it as that he didn't want her like blowing up his spot, right? But she also said like that she used to send him checks for thousands of dollars and he would return them to her cut into paper dolls. Which is very like what a metaphor. Like I'm gonna cut up your money and put it into like a thing a child would want. Yeah, it's very much like this.
It's not just a fuck you. It's an aggressive, creative endeavor to explain to you how much you absolutely fucked up because it would be a kindness to simply want nothing to do with you. A finger in the air would have been probably preferable to your child making something like putting in the creative effort to express to you just how much you can off.
Well, it's also just
way.
Also just this thing. It's basically saying like money can't replace the childhood you never gave me. Because paper dolls are associated with childhood. It's literally
it's two-dimensional. There's no depth. There's no weight to it. It is simply like it's a paper doll of a situation that you're trying to ask me to buy into,
right? And
performing and pretending that you've been a mom that you haven't been. And I resonate. Like I get her struggle very much. Like completely. Like to my soul, I get as a woman what she's going through. I'm not a mother. I have shelled out a lot of personal, emotional, and physical strife not being a mother. And I always struggle to have any sort of like really big feelings about somebody, like the choices that somebody makes in the throes of motherhood.
Yeah.
Specifically.
Yeah. And it's a unique criticism that we reserve for women. And we'll show like there's this clip right here of her talking about like how did your children how did they deal with you being gone all the time and then I want to talk about it.
Well, we don't ask these questions of men. We don't ask men, well, how do you juggle having a family and a career? We just assume that men's careers are what they are doing,
Yeah.
and the fact that they have a family is just handled for them.
How'd you raise kids, though, doing that?
Wasn't easy. You do it long distance. But I have always maintained Muhammad Ali was talking about it's the feeling and the spirit of things that counts. It's not necessarily your physical presence. My children knew that I loved them, and they knew that I was going to share the success, and they allowed me the freedom to make it. But they understood all the time it was happening.
That is a very bold statement to make on behalf of children.
Yeah. And,
There's
but, you know, I mean, that.
huge projection.
Yeah. It's, there's a little bit of denial in there, I think.
But it's also exactly like verbatim when you get to the like heart and structure of it, verbatim what fathers have been telling themselves for time immemorial. Because for the longest time, fathers were not present in the household because they were the ones out working. And, you know, the home life, the children, all of that was women's work. That was the mother's work, which we have lifetimes of things to say about that. But what I will say is that from a parenting perspective, women did end up getting the opportunity to bond with their kids and connect with their kids in a way that men didn't have that chance. Like, yeah, women were not afforded the opportunity to expand their careers, their networks. They were really limited in their opportunity and scope. But similarly, men were limited in the opportunity and scope of being present in their kids' lives.
Yeah.
Because if a father wanted to be as present in his kid's life as the mother was, there would literally be no breadwinner.
Right.
That was simply not an option. And I have so many things that I can and do and love to talk about when it comes to men. But at the end of the day, like, this is part of what feminism is about, is affording men opportunities to have emotional connections with their kids the way that mothers have always sort of been afforded.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. That's just my half-assed take on it.
So in 1998, so this is like, you know, after her beau has just passed, her son died of cancer, and she had not even known that he was sick. So, I mean, that has to be really fucking devastating, you know.
To be deprived of that information and the opportunity to be present for your kid.
Yeah. And I like empathize, you know, it, like I said, it's a kind of pressure we don't put on men. Like, men are not asked these questions in interviews. Like, how do you balance being a father? Like, they're just not. But that's an old feminist argument. Like, we all are kind of familiar with it. So I'm not going to belabor it too long.
It's worth noting, though. It is worth acknowledging.
Yeah. So shortly after this, like a year later, she had a series of strokes that left her paralyzed. She had a pacemaker installed, and her daughter Stephanie had to take care of her. It was a tough and arduous process. She'd been prescribed the wrong medication by doctors, which worsened her condition. Then she finally got to another doctor to treat her. And over the course of a year, she did regain her mobility and was able to perform again. And then just as she was getting better, her daughter Stephanie had a stroke and died suddenly. So yeah, like, talk about just
always chasing a moment of repose, of brief repose, and never being granted it.
Life is fucking hard, as I said earlier.
At this point, Phyllis was needing to use a wheelchair. She fell one night in a hotel and she crushed her arm. And after that, forever, she needed physical help. She decided it was time to hang up her hat. She did a farewell show at the Suncoast Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas on Cinco de Mayo in 2002.
Born in 1916. So here's her quote. As a child, I had very strong passions and aspirations, and I've lived to realize them all. I've had a family. I've known great romance. Clothes are coming out of my ears. God only knows the friends I have. And although I didn't foresee all the travel, it has just been incredible. I was the kid who never had a room or a birthday party. All I had to play with were boxes, but I loved my boxes. The glass you see is always half full, and I'm grateful for all that I've experienced. Unquote. Phyllis died in 2012.
There's no doubt that comedy is tragedy plus time. And I agree completely that there isn't a comic in the world that hasn't come out of tragedy. Let me put it this way. It takes an irritation to make a pearl in an oyster. And to have a comic, you have to have that tragic irritation.
It's unfortunate that true talent frequently comes from strife, from trauma, from the character that you build around the person you are, the husk of the person you are that needs you to show up for you. And the you that shows up ends up showing yourself ways to handle the situation that are comedy. It's comedy. That's what makes it comedy. But like ultimately it's a coping mechanism.
Yeah. So
jumping
I
back.
want to end on this TikTok where she is asked about her legacy.
I think my message would be mostly inspirational for women, so to tell them that it's never too late and that they can do it on their own and they don't have to be timid. I majored in timidity, and you can get well and cure yourself of being afraid.
What a powerful message, because I will be honest with you, I think that you and I are different in this because you have always had a very strong, shiny, gold-plated backbone. I have not. And that message that women can do it without anybody else, you can achieve it, especially just her whole legacy. She has done everything in the face of challenge, of men disappointing her, falling her short, putting her in positions that they like social contractually agreed never to put her through. And she shone from that. And she didn't care about her limitations. She didn't focus on that. What she focused on was, hey, maybe I can. So why not?
Yeah.
And that is such a powerful, powerful perspective to have on the world, especially when you're a woman. And especially when you're a woman in a space that is not historically designed for you.
Yes.
That is huge.
Yes.
That is hugely inspirational. For women of comedy or beyond, like this is a woman who holy, the more I've learned about her from you, the more I want a mural of her.
I know.
The way, I have a mural of her painted on my heart.
Yeah.
From these.
I'm just trying my darndest to make. I hate the term women's history. I just want women to know that we
are history.
We've been here the whole time.
Yeah.
And we've been doing stuff the whole time. I never have to worry about running out of content for this podcast. That there are more women than I could ever in 10 years of podcasting. I would never run out of incredible people or interesting people or notorious people or wretchedly evil people. I could never run out.
Yeah.
You know?
There's no shortage of great stories centering on women, whether we are the heroes or the villains of the story. We are the center point of our own stories, and that's the fucking point of Ill Repute.
Fuck yeah.
So as a final, just small aside, I wanted to take a moment to celebrate the life and the goodness and the just overall excellent dadmanship of my friend John Oakes, who has been honestly probably my first supporter in this podcast. Also somebody who's just supported me in every endeavor. Somebody I met in the virtual reality community. He gave me my first opportunity to speak at a VR conference. He's the first person who not just told me, but advocated on my behalf to give me a place to speak about the work that I'm doing, because he recognized that it was inherently valuable, whether or not it was attached to the adult industry. He's been a constant voice of goodness and support. Every episode he hits me up, he gives me feedback, all of it great, all of it the best. He's just been he's just a solid motherfucker, and he's been one of my favorite human beings. And I had the very unfortunate experience realizing that he has passed recently. His daughter reached out to me, and the whole VR community is shaken by it. And you, listener, probably are not in the VR community. So why does this matter to you? Well, it's because John has been such a fucking valiant supporter of this podcast. He has screamed from the top of his lungs how great the stuff we are working on is, and just literally there's nobody who he would not share it with. And he's just been like tip top, like great friend, great supporter, great mentor, great human being. I am so enthused to tell you that I am but one small fraction of the people who are devastated by the loss of him. But on this podcast especially, this has been something that, you know, this podcast, I've been doing this podcast through some really tough times in my life since we started it. John has been somebody who has been my fucking like uplifting like rock, and we lost him recently. And I just wanted to take an opportunity to say what a true devastating loss it is for this podcast in particular, because he was just always so fucking excited for us and jazzed for us and excited to engage with us. And he would message me like, holy shit, you girls are so fucking smart. You dropped some knowledge that like I never even realized. Are you serious? And he would just like, you can't show up for someone the way that John shows up. You can't decide that you want to be that kind of supportive person for someone. It just has to be who you are, and that was who he was. And
well,
anyway, solid dadmanship, solid VR professional, solid educator and academic, and very, very solid supporter of our work. He loved you. He loved us. He was proud of us. He was proud every fucking step of the way. Like serious dadmanship right here.
Well,
and I just I am wearing a shirt, SVVR. This was the conference, my first conference where I was invited to speak as an academic. And he helped advocate for me that, like, look, yes, she is talking about porn, but what has led every technological development? And he was someone who helped establish that, like, yes, she is talking about porn, but there will not be a hard dick in the house because she is so academic and dry about it that, like, you don't even need to worry. She is just going to come in and be smart, and nobody's going to care that it was, in fact, the people who came because they thought they were going to find conversations about porn are going to leave halfway through, because this is the best, kindest thing this man told me, and he said it in the way that he knew I needed to hear it, that the least interesting thing about me is the fact that I did porn. Like, that's the least interesting thing. You've done, of all the things you've done, oh, yeah, I guess you do porn.
Yeah.
But, like, you shipped products, you shipped games, you shipped shit. Anyway, long story short, John is great, and I love him, and I will mourn him pretty much every day forever, and he was a great supporter of this podcast. And I just want to take a moment, and thank you, Savi, for giving me this moment to just really like have a big feel about this great loss in my life, in a lot of communities, and honestly a loss of one of our first and most vibrant supporters. So.
I appreciate what you're going through, and I did not know John, but it makes me happy that we created something that brought him a little bit of laughter or joy, like something that, you know, made him excited. Like I'm so honored that I got to be part of creating a product that made someone's life a little funner, a little more enjoyable. So yeah,
absolutely. And I'm just, I will never stop being proud about the fact that we made this person proud.
Yeah.
Because there's not a lot of people whose opinions I care much for, but he made the fucking cut.
Yeah.
And
hey,
he
and
would
those father figures are important, you know, like, I've had father figures. One of them was George Pitts, who passed away a few years ago. So I get it. And yeah, we have many different father figures that come in and out, and mother figures that come in and out of our lives, you know?
Yeah.
And so the way that we honor them is by paying it forward. And so when I have the opportunity to mom, I make sure that I mom, you know, like when I have the opportunity, when I see someone, you know, I try my best to pay forward that care and that interest and that time.
Yes. And that's how we do.
Yeah.
That's how we bring it forward. So thank you, Savi, and thank you to our listeners, like, for this space, because a real fucking loss.
Yeah.
And he deserved a little bit of a shout out. He deserved a shout out probably much sooner. It shouldn't have taken him dying, frankly, for me to give him a shout out, because he has been such a support.
Babe.
Fucking
Don't
darling
do
ass,
that.
good ass man.
Don't get caught up in that. Like he knew, and he wasn't in it for a shout out on a podcast. So
No, I know.
it's
It's just, you get into your head about shit.
yeah. Get out of there. It's a neighborhood.
You're right. Not. Oh my god. Ew. Oh my god. Okay.
Vanity
I just looked at my
for the
camera.
win.
Oh yes. Thank God. I have smeared my mascara enough to regain comprehension of where I live in this moment.
Well, if you have any OnlyFans people that get off on tears, you now have some content to sell. So there you go.
Yeah. No, I'm just giving them free shit for no reason. Pay for it, bitch. Pay for it. Tip me.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so,
my love. I love you.
too.
I cherish
so
you.
should we?
Thank you for this, Phyllis. Yes.
We'd like to do a little land acknowledgement. I am broadcasting to you from traditional Tongva and Chumash territory, and I come from Chukchansi territory. And I actually had someone ask if I could give a shout out to the Yokut, and there you go. Thank you for being stewards of the land and an ongoing, continuing, thriving culture.
Amazing. And I would like to express my appreciation to the Tonkawa and Lipan Apache peoples and cultures and societies, and just for being the stewards of this land that I reside on before any of us were here, and who continue to be stewards of the land to this day. Could not exist literally in this space without them, and so much gratitude.
All right. I think we did it.
We did it. We did it. And I love you.
Too.
We did it. Girl, you did it.
Yes.
Phyllis, what a